Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest for you tonight. He's one of the greatest names at the Hawthorn Football Club. He's a 5-day, 5-night premiership champion. Dermott Brereton, welcome to the All for One podcast.
Thank you very much, boys. I thought you were about to introduce Kerry Ayres there for a second as well. People keep saying the 5 days and 5 nights for me, but Ayres, he did the same. I think Dipper got 5 days, and I think he might have got 4 nights, but he got a Brownlow, so that more than makes up for it.
Well, I think your name still shines bright in those. Just however, but they are also legends. We have a few legends, so we're lucky to be Hawthorn fans.
Beautiful.
Now, Derby, of course, going into this season, having gone back-to-back, everyone's pretty pumped about Hawthorn's prospects, about going in for the three-peat. How do you rate the 2015 team going into this season as compared to the 2014 team going into last year's season?
I had some trepidation about last year, looking purely on the statistical data at the age of the match winners. And the match winners, I mean, in the middle of the ground, Burgoyne, Mitchell, Hodge, and even though Lewis is a little bit younger, he plays a little bit older, if you know what I mean. His body's been beaten around.
Absolutely.
He's such a hard-at-it type player. So I thought, look, they might just come back to the field a bit from their premiership year the year before. But their management system must be extraordinary because these boys did it beautifully. And looking at them right now, they're prepared beautifully once again. I can't see... It's not as if they've found the elixir to life or the magical potion that'll keep them young forever. Sure. But they are just capable of playing at their best still because their bodies have been given a chance. Now, when you add that on, I can't see that their bodies are going to fail them this year. You add on the fact that there's a couple of guys coming into the team who are serious players. Jed Anderson missed a year of footy because of injury and illness.
Yes. He
comes in a more mature person, a more mature player, and his body is ripping and raring to go. Chip Frawley comes in, and Absolutely. I think there's a little bit of the Chris Dawes syndrome with Chip Frawley, is that when Collingwood let go Chris Dawes, they almost wrote him down verbally. They were trying to make out they were doing the right deal, so they discounted how valuable Chris Dawes was, and they're still looking for that second key forward right today.
They are.
They had him, Chris Dawes, but he had one really bad year and one ordinary year, and I couldn't understand why they wouldn't persevere. Now, Chip Roy, he went forward last year, didn't have the best season by his standards. Melbourne people were willing to write him down because they thought he's going. I can't understand that. He's a serious player. So given all this information, I think Hawthorn somehow, some way, in some possible light, I think they're better placed than at the round 1 mark of season 2014.
It's a scary prospect, isn't it? We agree with you here, and a lot of people have said that because they have added, Frawley, a big, powerful athlete. So we agree with you here, and hearing someone such as yourself say that, it gives us great confidence. Now, we all know Frawley, and we've seen him as an All-Australian player, so bringing him into the fray is huge. A lot of people may have heard about Jed Anderson. They haven't seen him play much. Do you think you could give us a little bit of a spiel about what he might bring to the list? Because he's really big for us. Yeah, look,
by and large, what you have, for people who haven't seen him play, you have one of two types of players, and there's blokes who split the divide, and they are inside players or outside players when you look at midfielders.
Yes.
Like Sam Mitchell's an inside player. He gets the ball in close, he fires out handballs, he's got a wonderful quick step over about 4 or 5 metres. He's fantastic. Hodge is an inside player who can at least travel to the next line, but his vision, his foot skills, his toughness, so you still classify him as an inside player.
Absolutely.
Lewis is an inside player, hard, nuggety over the ball, but has leaned off over the years so he can at least cover the ground.
Sure.
Burgoyne's quite freakish. He's an inside player with a wonderful step and an ability to find the ball, but he can cover the ground as well.
Yeah.
Then you've got outside players. You have Bradley Hill, who, if you put him into the inside, you'll kill him. you'll break his body down, and then you will you'll kill him. You imagine somebody like Sam Mitchell or even who's a good. Imagine Luke Hodge playing against Brad Hill, and he got a hold of him
eating for breakfast.
That's why he's such a good runner.
But then on the outside, Brad Hill, once the ball's put into space, he'll chop up someone like Hodge if it's a sprint to the ball.
Correct.
So you need that balance inside and out. Jed Anderson is primarily because of his pace, is an outside player because he can cover the ground. He's very, very fast. But the one thing he also has is unbelievable courage and a real ability to win the ball on the inside. So it's a unique combination. So he's a really, really exciting prospect. He's as tough as old boots. He's as fast as Grease Lightning.
He's quick, isn't he?
Look, you'd say Isaac Smith is probably the hardest runner. You'd say Bradley Hill is the fastest. I'd say Jed Anderson, just looking from the outside, will run second to both of them in those two areas in terms of endurance and pace.
That's a huge rep because they're two of the best runners in the entire AFL, so that's huge.
Yeah, it is. So, look, he's not a walk-up start. Nobody is in a grand final team that hasn't played in the previous season's grand final, but I tell you what, you need to turn over. We turned over 5 players from our premiership loss. Then we won the premiership. We turned over 4 into the second premiership. So you'd think the average amount, grand final day to grand final, I know you'll probably end up using 32, 34 players per year. The average would seem to be 4 new players each year, given injuries.
Sure. Yep.
Given age on players, so you need to find 4 blokes who are pretty well at the top of the game and quality within the AFL system.
Yeah, understood. So, Jed Anderson probably fills that bill. We've got Chip Frawley, who probably fills that bill, and there might be another couple like John O'Rourke.
Yeah, and you also got Brendan Whitecross coming back, who's proved he's a serious AFL standard player who's just been desperately unfortunate. So they've got some blokes who were knocking on the door, and if they can get themselves fit and stay fit, they're ready-made, and ready-made. They'll probably fill positions 15 to 22 in Hawthorn, and they'll probably be filling positions 4 to 12 in most of the other AFL teams. So they're incredibly well placed.
And just putting pressure on people to perform each week and at training, which just creates an elite team, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, when that used to happen, we used to knock those blokes around if you were the incumbent. Yeah,
no doubt.
Used to knock them around a bit, so they didn't get a chance.
Well, they'll be ready for finals if that's the case.
What's that?
They'll be ready for finals if that's the case. If it's that hard at training, they'll be hardened by the time they get into the team and maybe have to step up at the finals. Well,
we hope a kid makes it through. When I say a kid, a first or maybe even a second-year drafted player.
Yes.
But these boys we're talking about coming in, they're 4 or 5 years into the competition, so they're not going to be novices. They're not going to be juniors coming in who are feeling their way into league football. They're blokes who know the ropes.
Hey, and on going back to Chip Frawley quickly, Dermy, given the quality of Hawthorn's system, do you think his best football is yet to come?
I do. At Melbourne, and we know where they are situated, he was having to be moved around. They had to move him forward from the back line. If things got desperate, they moved him back down there. He's a desperately good player. And the thing that he's going to find at Hawthorn will simplify the world for him.
Yeah.
Hawthorn looked at Brian Lake and said, "You've been magnificent. You delivered us a premiership and then was a massive contributor in the second one. But life is not going to stop with the exclusion of Brian Lake, whether it be at the end of this year or next year or whatever. They have to look forward from that. And Frawley will take over that mantle for another 6, 7, 8 years.
Yes,
that's great. That's huge. Well, look, Dermy, we've talked up Hawthorn so much, and they're probably no team's been in a better position to go for a three-peat, probably even a stronger position than the Lions were in 2001. So we've talked up all these positives, but no season's ever perfect, as 2014 showed us. What types of things, what teams and what circumstances could maybe get in the way? What are some of the threats to Hawthorn in 2015?
Well, the thing is that'll get in the way is that those three letters next to somebody's name after each weekend, INJ. That's what, most teams that fall apart have the highest injury. You can go through the footballing AFL ladder each year, and normally there's a couple that buck the system, but whoever comes last, the wooden spooner, will probably finish on top for injuries sustained, games missed. You can flip the ladder upside down, and nearly always the premiers have the least amount of injuries. So once you start getting a critical mass in terms of numbers of injuries, you're starting to really impact on your chances.
You're somewhat buoyed from Hawthorn's depth last season. For example, Mitchell missed 9 weeks, Rioli 14 in total, Gibbo 9 in total, Lake 11 in total, 4 of those were suspension. Do you think, everyone was talking about our depth last year, is that a bit of a boost for Hawthorn, a bit of a competitive advantage that we have over other clubs?
Yeah, you don't ever want to lose them. But the thing, I believe what it's taught the medicos, and the medicos will be well aware of this, because of that scenario, they had a lightened load. And they'll take that into account. You might find someone like Hodge, if there's any 5-day turnarounds, you wouldn't play Hodge, maybe not Mitchell. If they're slightly sore from the weekend before, if there's a 6-day turnaround and travel involved, you might leave one out because the depth is so deep now. They've probably learned from that scenario also. So, but this is just from the outside.
Absolutely.
Pondering, I deliberately stay away from the club. I support it with all my might and cherish the place, but I deliberately stay away so when I'm in the media I can make
you're a professional, independent.
Yeah, just an independent, unbiased call.
Sure.
Which is what I find I'm doing today. And having said that, last year I said Hawthorn might finish just third, fourth, maybe even fifth, depending on the age of the list and what injuries does to it and games missed. So I will call it as I said. So they certainly bucked that system, and they're on track to do the same again.
Yeah, that's great to hear. That's good to hear.
And of course, the other team that, one of the other teams that is getting a lot of talk this season is Port, of course, where Hawthorn has 5 players over 30 in their above average or elite category. Port has none. Such a young list, but I guess it's a matter of quality youth versus quality experience. What do you value more in terms of these two teams going forward?
Look, if you A-graders, it's all about your A-graders. But if your A-graders are fit, they can be 40 years of age.
Yep,
I'm taking that to the extreme. As long as they're fit,
Brett Harvey.
Yeah. As long as they're fit, doesn't matter what age they are. I know absolute youthful exuberance. See, the thing that happened to Port Adelaide as well, they're meant to have I think it was 12, 14 players who can do a 16-plus beat test, which is extraordinary.
Yeah.
They're so young, they haven't been bashed around with 5 or 6 seasons yet.
Correct.
Yeah.
Once they get 7 or 8 seasons into them, and they keep running into 100-kilo league footballer beast men, they're going to stop running 16 beat tests. But right now, they're a real threat. And with Ryder going there, as long as he's legal and fit, allowed to play, they're a real threat. Yeah, but look, they pressed Hawthorn in the preliminary, but if you go back to 30-odd points ahead, Brad Hill tried to stop a ball in the goal square, it nutmegged him, rolled through, they kicked a goal. He started giggling and laughing, and his teammates started laughing. Not great, but they knew they had the game won.
Yeah.
Port got on a roll from that, and Hawthorn just couldn't stop it. And when they did stop it, thank God it was in time. But I think it was a bit of a false read.
We agree with you there.
Of course you would.
We made that exact observation last year.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a false read. Yeah. They're good. I think they're the second best team, although I think right now, if you played the grand final of the Lightning Premiership this weekend, they'd play off with Sydney for the right to go ahead and take on Hawthorn.
Yeah, that's a fair call. But yeah, you wouldn't see Bradley Hill nutmeg too often, so I felt the same, that they had their minds onto the grand final already.
Now, they played a little safe after that, and Port, to their absolute enormous credit, got on a roll and didn't say die. And they do have that aspect to them.
Without a doubt.
They're bloody good at that, Port Adelaide. They do have that history behind them that says, we are Port Adelaide, we don't lose. And yeah, they believe it. They really believe it.
Yeah, sure. Now, Dermy, a team that's been building over the last few years and looking dangerous as ever is North Melbourne. The one team that we would probably want to play least in a preliminary final, this is our opinion, would be North Melbourne. They're a bit of a bogey team for us at the moment. Why do you think it is that they match up against Hawthorn so well?
I think they match up against Hawthorn really well at times when Hawthorn doesn't take them on really seriously well.
Yes.
I think if you got to them at the serious end, right now as the two lists go, I think Hawthorn would account for them comfortably. Okay. They wouldn't wipe the floor with them. I think they'd account for them comfortably. They fell apart against Sydney last year in that final. I think Hawthorn would be capable of playing a similar style game to them that Sydney did. I think they'd get them. They just have some really good inside players, and Hawthorn's always had a little bit of a weakness for the monster big key forwards.
Yep. Yes.
And until Brian Lake came along, that seemed to be the case. And Brian didn't cover himself in glory that last time.
No, it's probably one of his darker moments at Hawthorn.
Yeah, but he'd be willing to take that all again to get a second premiership, which I'm sure he would.
I would have thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. I like that observation as a Hawthorn fan. I think our listeners will too.
Yeah, but by and large, North Melbourne have got some pretty hard, fierce inside midfielders, and they do pretty well with that, and they are willing to run and gun out of the back line. I think Hawthorn's forwards half let it slip last time on that Friday night football against them last year, and their key forward created a bit of havoc.
Yeah, sure. Now, I guess it would be remiss of us to not talk about Sydney quickly. They're probably the grand final performance, to be fair to Sydney, is not reflective of how they typically play or how they typically match up against Hawthorn. How do you rate them as a premiership contender in 2015?
Sydney are an exceptional team, extraordinary team. I think there's my gradings at the moment. Hawthorn on top, a half shade behind is Port and Sydney. And then there's a little bit of daylight to the teams that are sitting behind them, Fremantle, Geelong and the likes. I just think Sydney have two good journeyman key backmen, Grundy and Richards.
Yes.
But they're not stars. They get support from some star backmen, but those star backmen are attacking backmen. They're not lockdown backmen. Nick Smith is the one lockdown backman they've got, but he plays on a small man. So their great players in the back line are attacking backmen. They're not shutdown players. So where they're so dangerous is they put pressure on the opposition when they win the ball in their back line. Hawthorn bashed up those running, attacking backmen, and they came apart at the seams.
Yeah.
Hawthorn bashed them up a bit in the midfield. They won't let that happen again. They'll have been preparing for it. They'll have had crash helmets on at training and just banging into each other, set for Hawthorn. And to be well done to him, and we all still love Buddy. He's a great guy and he's a wonderful player.
Sure.
I think Buddy's grand final was arguably the best game I've seen him play. I know I've seen him kick some telephone number scores. He kicked 13. I was watching that day against North Melbourne.
Yeah.
But I thought his grand final was the best game I've seen him play, given the stage, given the circumstances.
Just as an all-round football performance.
Absolutely. His hands were the best. He was as strong as an ox. He was the best overhead marking display I've seen him give. So they're really well balanced. I think they're going to bash up 15 other teams, but it's going to be tough for them to get over the top-end teams who now know the code for breaking down Sydney's backline. If they can stand up, they'll go all the way to the grand final day again.
Yeah,
so, yeah, there's a bit of a system to beating Sydney.
It's a fine line probably with them.
Yeah, it's just whether you can carry that out. Other than that, if you can't carry it out, they're going to beat everyone who can't carry that out. That's an obvious statement.
Yeah, sure.
But look, Fremantle should be able to put that pressure on them again. It's whether they can kick enough at the other end. Hawthorn have the system to do it. Port Adelaide are able to put untold physical pressure on them. It's how they'll stand up. They're an exceptional team.
Okay, great.
Yeah, sure. Well, one final question. We talked about Jed Anderson earlier. Is he going to be the breakout player for Hawthorn this year, or are there any other contenders for the breakout player at the club?
Look, I like the boy who hasn't played a game yet, James Sicily. He's the first player to come along that reminds me of an 18-year-old me.
We can see that. Bit of fire.
Yeah, he's got. He's around the 6'1", 6'1.5" mark. He seems to have long arms, which he can mark the ball high off the ground. He covers the ground pretty well. He's got good goal sense, and I don't think he's any stranger to the umpires when they're talking talking to him to settle down. Yeah,
sure. Well, that's what we like. We like a bit of that hardness and mongrel in the team.
Yeah, so having said that, he's probably at the worst club to get a game.
Yeah,
so that's our player at the moment. So, yeah, fingers crossed for him. I hope he does well.
Yeah, I like him. He's a real prospect.
Yeah, look, I'm sure he will. Look, Dermy, we could talk footy all day, but we better let you go. Thank you so much for taking the time to come and have a chat on the All for One podcast.
No worries, boys. And next time, we'll leave it a little while, but next time I'll come in, okay? We're just caught out with this really, really busy week.
No, we appreciate it. We couldn't thank you any more, Dermy.
Yeah, no, we really appreciate it,
guys.
Mate.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Dermy. Cheers.
Have a great year.
See you, boys. Cheers.
Bye.